Welcome to the Digital Remodeler Podcast. So glad you have chosen to join us today. And with me is Ryan Thomas from Serica Marketing. Ryan, so glad you've joined us today.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited.
And Ryan and I had a conversation last week, and I was just thrilled to get him onto the podcast. In fact, I told him you've got to come onto the podcast because we were talking AI, and of course, everybody talks AI these days, so that's not the big deal. And we're talking about AI assistants, and well, everybody's talking AI assistants today. That's not the big deal. What really got me excited about our conversation is most of the AI people I talk to, let's just be honest, they're computer nerds and they don't understand the workflow of contractors. And as Ryan and I got to talking, that was what really got me excited today. So, to our audience, you're going to want to buckle in because Ryan has developed some AI technology with the understanding of your pain point, and I think that's going to be helpful. So, Ryan, we're going to have some fun in our conversation today. And again, I appreciate you joining us.
I'm looking forward to being here and having this chat. I'm
All
excited.
right. So, one of the things we discussed last week, speed to lead is the name of the game today. Would you agree?
Uh, yes, 100%.
100%.
Absolutely.
And your background, as we were talking, really is developing sales systems. That's been your bread and butter. And if you'd kind of give us just a little background when we talk about developing sales systems, what does that mean? What have you really been fixing for clients, in the past? What's been kind of your forte?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a bigger question. So, yeah, I guess a little bit of background, a little bit of history. I've been in sales for about a decade and I've done door-to-door sales. I've worked in tech sales, I've worked in account management, and over the last several years been in sort of remote high tickets, someone, the calls being booked into my calendar and into my schedule, and I just take a Zoom call with them. So I've worked in investment banking, I've worked in marketing for contractors, like I said, tech sales for big corporations, and all all of it that I've seen is particularly actually when I come into the contractors and when I was working for that company, it all came down to the speed to lead because when people look for a contractor, they go to Google Maps, really. They don't go to Google. I mean, they might go to Google, but really they're going to Google Maps because they want to see who's local. They don't want to find, you live in Miami, Florida, you don't want to find a contractor that's in Denver. All right, so they go to Google Maps and then they just start looking through the reviews, see who's closest, see who's got the highest reviews, and then they call you. And then if you don't pick up, they just immediately hang up and then go right to the next one. They don't pick up, hang up, go right to the next one. And when it comes to sales, um, it's same. I mean, same thing for me is like when someone schedules in that call and they're ready to talk to me, that means that they're the warmest that they will ever be. And every minute that passes, every minute, every hour, every day, their interest level starts dropping, and then they might find someone else who is ready when they were ready, and they get on the call, and then I miss out on the sale. So being in full commission for a long time. Um, I've experienced it firsthand the importance of sales systems to make sure that every single moment a lead comes in, it needs to be handled and needs to be handled properly. Otherwise, that's just money that's out of my pockets. And that's what I really wanted to bring for contractors is basically the same sort of thing. Because like you said, it's speed to lead. You need to get on them quick.
Yeah, this is so critical, Ryan, and you and I got to talking about this because as a marketer, running an agency, this was the thing our discussion got about is we've got clients paying us thousands of dollars to drive traffic to them, and our
Hmm.
frustration is when the phone doesn't get answered, and so we've got a client paying us thousands of dollars to push people to them, and then that lead doesn't get handled. And just what you said, the nature of the game is that's the warmest that person's ever going to be. And when that call doesn't get answered, they just move on. And one of the conversations I know I've had with clients is it doesn't matter how long you've been in business, doesn't matter how good your work is, doesn't matter how good your reputation is. When you miss that opportunity, you've lost the game. And so I love what you said. I love the way you described that. That today's consumer wants instant gratification, and if you don't pick up, they just move on to the next person. So let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of a misnomer that it's like, oh, if they leave a voicemail, if they really want to work with me, they would wait until I call them back. But ultimately, the person doesn't know how cool and how awesome and how great you are because there's another dozen contractors that also have 4 stars, 4.2 stars, 4.5, 5 stars that they can just hang up and dial. So they don't have that relationship with you. When they have the relationship with you, it's very different. But when you're trying to generate more business, it means you're not going to your warm market. You're going to a cold market, and cold marketing is completely different than warm marketing. So when someone who doesn't know who you are, when they call you, um, 80% of people, there's an interesting stat. You can look it up yourself. It's anywhere from 75 to 80% of people don't leave voicemails. They just hang up and call the next person. So it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, I'll call them back in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. If I'm remembering the stats correctly, if you wait 5 minutes to call someone back, your chances of reaching that person and converting them to a client drops by 10 times. So it's 10 times harder to actually get them on the phone and convert them. If you wait 30 minutes, you're essentially talking to a cold lead. It's 100x less likely. Conversely, and like in another way to put these words, if you're able to respond to someone within 1 minute, your conversion rates go up by 398%. And you guys can Google that or look it up in ChatGPT or Claude, whichever AI you use, if you use it, or just go to Google and you can just look up those stats. So the speed to lead isn't about, they left a voicemail and I called them back right away, or they sent me a text and I called them back right away. It's really when that call comes in, needing to be able to respond to them immediately.
Yeah, I think that's important. For the longest time, the benchmark people were aiming for was 15 minutes. And nowadays, I tell our clients, 15 minutes, you're already dead in the water. 5 minutes, you're pushing it. You really want to be on top of that lead instantaneously. And I love what you said there, that your percentages go up if you're in that first minute. Your percentages
Mm-hmm.
start going down after really that first minute. You've got almost really a 60-second window there. And I think so many contractors miss that. In today's world, we are trained for instant gratification.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's also so many options that are out there. So it can be a really competitive market. And because when consumers have a lot of options, unless they have that relationship with you, they don't, what reason would they go with you when they have so many other options? And that's where having that competitive advantage really plays that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, you saw this pain point, you saw this really breakdown in the sales process for so many contractors, and you saw an opportunity. So let's talk about the steps
Yeah.
you took and what'd you come up with?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, yes, AI is here, whether we want it to or not. AI is here. So how could we really leverage AI to basically solve the problems that we deal with? Because I mean, ultimately, as contractors, like you guys are busy, you're on a job site, you're on the road, you're on another call, your receptionist is busy, it's after hours, you're on the weekend, you're tired, you're like, I just want to spend some time with my family, no one's in the office. So there's problems here. And what I want to and if you hire if you try to hire a voice like an in-person agent, it can be kind of costly, right? And then there's human error, there's training that goes into it, there's turnover, there's churn. So there's just a number of issues that are going on in there. So the way that I came at this is not to replace humans and not to replace your team or yourself, but rather as a stopgap to simply switch out from using voicemail because people don't use it and simply switch it to an AI voice agent. And it doesn't really need to be all that complicated, because I was a little overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest. When I was really diving into it, I was a little overwhelmed because there's so many different tools and systems and ways to use it. So when I just got really, pun intended, I guess, got really dialed in, um, but pardon me, I won't quit my day job here. I won't try to become a comedian. But when I just got really dialed in with that specific problem that the contractors are dealing with, which is just being able to pick up the phone when a call comes in, and just like life just got a lot easier. And it doesn't need to be complicated. It can just be super simple. Just solve that one particular problem. Switch from a voicemail to a voice AI agent. It can just be that simple.
Yeah, and this is I'm going to stop you here to our audience. This is why I wanted Ryan on the podcast. So most of the AI people that approach me for the podcast want to talk about AI agents on the website. But most of the audience contractors that we talk to day in and day out, their issue is the phone. Their issue is those missed calls. And what I really appreciated about what Ryan has put together, and the reason I wanted him to elaborate on this, is it's those drop calls that really are the pain point. And that's the pain point that he has really set out to solve. And so that's what I want us to talk a little bit about here is it's the voicemail issue that's become the problem. It's the contractor that thinks if they'll just leave me a voicemail, I'll get back to them and we'll get that business closed. It's the contractor that's been in business 20 years that doesn't understand why people won't leave them a voicemail anymore. So let's talk about that a little bit if you don't mind. Why it's so critical now to go ahead and be able to handle that call and not just route it to a voicemail, and how you're providing that new bridge solution to take the consumer where they want to go today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there's a few different ways that this really works. I mean, when people call, they want to get some questions answered, right? And they just want to feel like they're being served. That's really what it is. So I want to make sure that I don't overcomplicate this too much, because it can be super simple and it can be super complex if you want it to be. Um, but when someone calls and there's a human voice that's there that answers some of their questions, um, makes them feel like they're being taken care of, at that point, that tension that they're feeling, like, I need to get this thing solved, I need to get this dealt with. When they leave a voicemail, they feel like they're just speaking into the ether, and then nothing really gets resolved. And then they're still going to go online and keep looking around. But if they have a conversation with someone, even if it's a voice AI agent, they get some of their questions answered, they feel like they're being serviced, and then the next step is laid out for them. So they know at that point what their next step is. No one comes into a call with a contractor thinking, okay, this contractor is going to be here in 5 minutes. Sometimes that's true. If there's, the septic system is overflowing, you know, things like that, like emergency calls. But generally, when people are calling, they know that it's going to take a minute for the contractor to get that and to come to them. So it's just that little bridge right there of dealing with that bit of tension of them wanting to feel like they're inching forward towards their solution. Voicemail, speaking into the ether, they're still looking for a solution. A voice AI agent answers their questions, solves a bit of that internal tension, resolves it, and then gives them the next steps of what's going to happen next. And that gives you the space that you need to be able to call them back in 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or the next day. Not only from that, but that voice AI agent can also send them something, a text message that says, hey, fill out some of these questions. That's going to help us build out a really, really detailed quote. So when we get back to you, we're going to be able to give you that quote. So fill this out. Now, again, they're being walked along that sales cycle. And that's also a sort of a sales qualification tool. A lot of salespeople want to make sure that they're qualifying the people, the potential clients that come in, their leads, to make sure that they're a viable lead. And so once they have the conversation with the voice AI agent, the agent sends a text message or an email, gets them to fill out a particular form. That's qualification. That's guiding that client, that lead along the sales cycle. And then at that point, now they're a little bit more bought in, they're more invested. And now you have the information that you need in order to service them well. And then on top of that, you would also get an internal notification, either a text to yourself or an email stating, hey, this person is contacted you looking for these issues. This is their timeline, their urgency. And then you're able to call, either call or text that person, however it is that you prefer to communicate with your client. And so that's kind of that journey.
That's good. Now, let's talk about, obviously there's going to be some concerns. So,
Yeah,
how's it going to represent my business? Is it going to sound robotic? Is it going to represent me well? What if my
absolutely.
former
I
clients
can
call in?
absolutely I can answer that. There was actually another thing that I forgot to mention. Um, Maybe some of the math around the use of voice AI over over voicemail. Do you want me to speak to that first, or do you want me to answer
Yeah,
that
yeah.
question that you just had?
Let's deal with
The concerns there
the
first.
concerns first, and then let's talk
Sure,
about the numbers.
sure. So a lot of people are concerned, like, is it going to sound like a robot? Like I remember calling in. So I'm Canadian, and I've called into the CRA, the Canadian Revenue Agency, and it's this ridiculous voice, ridiculous IVR or something, and it doesn't understand me. It's all it is just logging a word and then rerouting me. It's not actually servicing me. And then, 10 years ago, it sounds super robotic. That's not the case nowadays. It sounds very much like a human. There's intonation. You can actually train it. So if it speaks a certain way, you can say, hey, I want you to have more of a downward tonality. And so you can actually, I want you to sound more bubbly and more friendly. I want you to sound more firm. So there's ways that you can actually train it. Um, so it doesn't sound robotic. And it's very well dialed in. It can listen and understand the context of what it is that you're saying and then guide you from there. In terms of like being able to represent your business well, again, that just comes down to training. So if you want, the basic information from your website, hours of operation, if there's a certain cultural element to your company, we can train the AI to make sure that it speaks with a certain vernacular that represents your business well.
That's good. Now let's get into the numbers.
All right,
Let's
we can get into the
let's
numbers.
talk about the cost of missing calls.
Yeah, so I'll use a particular example. I was having a good chat with a septic contractor, and so for him, he said I'll just go through the numbers. So he said that he takes about 80 calls a month, and I remember that when I called him, he didn't call back for about half an hour. So I don't know if that 80 calls is what the calls that he's people that he's talking to, or the calls that he's responding to when they come in. But he takes 80 calls a month. He said that he answers about 90% of his calls. So if I work out the math, that means that he's receiving 90 calls a month and he's answering approximately 80, just to keep the numbers simple. That means there's 10 calls that are being missed per month. He told me that he's taking about 20 jobs per month. Now I know that I'm working, like, maybe I hope I don't lose anybody with some of the math here, but it takes about 20 jobs per month. Half of them are new installations that are an average of 8K for an installation, and the other half are about $400 pump outs approximately. So out of those 10 missed calls, if we were to use a voice AI agent, and the stats show that a voice AI agent, the getting someone from a voicemail on to a client is approximately 15%, apparently. I'm just going off the numbers that I've been reading, right? Voice AI agents are anywhere from 25 to 65%. So let's say out of those 10 missed calls, they all get answered from the voice AI. And let's say 50% of them, so only five, actually like are being worked on. Let's say he converts one person per month. That's 12 clients a year. Making sense so far? I'm not losing anybody? I hope not. Carl, you let me know. Is this making sense so
I
far?
think I think we're good.
Okay, good. All right. So let's say now 50% of those, he said it's a 50-50. So if 50% of those are new installs, that's six, and those new installs are 8K. So six times 8,000, that's 48,000 a year. That's not including the pump outs. Even if he only did three of those were new installations, three times 8,000, that's 24 grand right there. The remaining clients for the pump outs at $400 each. Let's say it's another like $5,000. So that's around another, like, let's say 28 to 30 grand. And these are relatively conservative numbers simply by switching from his voicemail to a voice AI. So when the call doesn't pick up, when he doesn't pick up, there's a trigger that activates the voice AI at that point to make sure that that person is being taken care of. And let's say it's a past client and they just want to leave a voicemail, they can just say, "Hey, I'm just, like, you can, like, I can train the AI to respond in that scenario," versus a new client. If it's someone who just wants to leave a message, I can train the AI to just simply take the message and then relay that to you as well. So if someone just wants to do that, they can do that. Or if you want it to answer questions, we can do that. So whatever it is that you want from that AI agent, how to handle those calls, we just set up some SOPs and train it and go from there. So you're not missing out on, a couple pretty pennies.
That's good. So how complex is it to set up something like this?
If someone if someone just wants the AI voice, it's relatively straightforward. There's obviously time that goes into it, but it's relatively straightforward. If you want more call tracking, if you want to start tracking more metrics, you want to build out some bigger systems within your business so you know how to move your marketing dollars around, and you want to know which tools are working the best. If you want to create appointment reminders, follow-ups to people, if you want to pardon me, if you want to re-engage past customers, let's say they canceled or no-showed, you want to get them onto another appointment or another call. So these are additional tools that we can build out that are inside of the system. So the level of complexity just really depends on what kind of systems the contractor really wants to build. If you want to build out a full CRM that ties into maybe your existing system, as well as the AI voice and AI chat bots and conversation bots, we can do that. That's obviously a larger project. If you just want the AI voice, relatively simple, can be done within approximately a week.
That's good. So Ryan, if somebody wants to learn more about you, wants to learn more about the AI voice, how it can work for their business, you also have a calculator where they can actually see the difference it can make in their business. Where can they do that?
Yeah, so I founded my company, Serica Marketing, and I built out a website called AIvoiceforcontractors.com. So I'll just say that again, it's just AIvoiceforcontractors.com. When you go there, you'll see me, you'll see my face if you're just listening to this podcast and you're not watching it on YouTube. And then there's a quick video that explains how to use the calculator. It's pretty straightforward, but I want to keep it as as dummy proof as possible. And then you're just going to go into the calculator and you're just going to use a little slide ruler that's just going to say how many calls you're taking per month, how many calls you say that you take, average lifetime value of a customer. And then on that calculator, it'll show you how much money that you could be making simply by switching from the voicemail to the voice AI. And you can
Excellent.
find that again on AIvoiceforcontractors.com. And then if you're interested, there's a link in there. You just schedule a call with me.
Perfect.
And as well, actually, I should say as well that there will be a test agent. So if you want to call and just play around with it, and just experience it for yourself before you schedule a call with me, you can do that. So there will be a phone number that will be available for you to dial and you can call. And that's just going to be I'm just making it as a window. It's a window replacement agency. I can't create a voice agent for every single type of contractor. So it's just, call as though you're looking for window repair, window replacement. And then that voice AI agent will be able to sort of show you what the capabilities are. And then obviously, make changes for whatever industry you happen to be in.
Fantastic. And then, Ryan, any final thoughts you have? Just a golden nugget because of your background in sales and this whole discussion of speed to lead for any of our
Mm-hmm.
contractors who are listening out there.
Yeah, I guess there's one thing that comes to my mind is that when it comes to scaling your business, there need to be appropriate systems. If there isn't proper tracking, if there isn't proper lead management, lead nurturing, it's really, really challenging to scale because you don't know what's breaking within your company. And you're only really responding to what it is that you see, but you're missing some of the crash that's happening behind you. And that's where the sales systems come into place, is to make sure that you're aware of everything that's happening. So you know what needs attention, what needs your attention, what's working and what isn't working. So you can trim the fat and just, scale that way. Education and data is power. Um, and the simplest, start with the simplest solutions. I think it's pretty clear what I would focus on. And then from there, once you're generating a little extra revenue because you're getting 100% of those calls answered, you're generating some more revenue. This is going to help you scale, and this is going to help you build out the systems that I think that you already know that you need. You're just too busy working in the business at this point that it's hard to get that work done. So you can use an AI voice agent for a fraction of the cost of a human agent, generate more revenue, and then build systems from there. Those are my thoughts.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, thank you for joining us today. And to our audience, we look forward to having you on the next episode of The Digital Remodeler.
Thanks a lot for having me.
You bet.